I'm just trying to decide if I'm comfortable even talking about that.
This One's Wife. The Wimbledon Delusion. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This One's Wife has had a few trips to Wimbledon. Apparently, she first attended Wimbledon way back in July 2016, the same month she reportedly met Prince Harry, although, as we all know, the actual details and timings of their coming together have been somewhat vague and ambiguous. But nevertheless, she purportedly attended Wimbledon in July 2016 and was seen there in the Ralph Lauren VIP suite at the Wimbledon Tennis Championships. She then returned in July 2018, and on that occasion she was there with the Princess of Wales, or the Duchess of Cambridge as she then was. And you'll remember that Catherine and this One's Wife attended their first event together without their respective husbands, and where this One's Wife wore a blue and white striped top and Catherine was in a dress as they were in the royal box. That was in 2018. Then she was back again in 2019, although on this occasion she wasn't with Catherine. She was accompanied by two of her non-intimate secondary sources, namely two of her friends, Genevieve Hills and Lindsay Roth. The trio were sat in the members section of Court 1, not the royal box. And you may recall that at the time there were rows of empty seats around this One's Wife and her friends, which led to many believing that she had organised the clearance of that area around her. It was also the case that anybody that sought to take a photograph of her ended up being reprimanded by the security, which is unusual because ordinarily this One's Wife absolutely loves being photographed. It provides her with fuel and the subconscious explanation that this individual is under control. But it would appear that she deemed it to be a threat to control and organised for a royal protection officer to state to a member of the public, would you not take photographs of the Duchess? She's here in a private capacity. Accordingly, on this third visit to Wimbledon, this One's Wife engaged in grandiosity, in purportedly having the seats around her cleared. She showed a sense of entitlement and sought to nullify threats to control posed by members of the public taking photographs of her. Accordingly, 3 visits to Wimbledon. But whilst those visits in themselves provide material for analysis, it's not actually the specific visits that are the purpose of this video, but rather a rather entertaining find in respect of this One's Wife's IMDb page. As you can see, this excerpt from her IMDb page lists various appearances. Now, it is often the case that an individual on their IMDb page will list, for instance, film and television credits where they're playing a role, and also instances where they play their self. So, for example, they might appear in the film playing themselves, and therefore they're credited as such. But rather entertainingly, the information here, which was identified on the Reddit thread, Saint This One's Wife, they use her full name, I do not, and posted by some speculation. Always important to provide credit with regard to people finding these things. That, as you can see, that her Wimbledon attendance in 2018 with Catherine, now Princess of Wales, is recorded as self, spectator, uncredited, because, of course, it appeared on television. Yeah. Now, it's one thing, for instance, as you'll see in relation to the event of her royal wedding, which interestingly only merits 2.6 stars. But that was televised, but it was an event all about her and Harry. So that does make more sense to list that as self. But basically, Wimbledon isn't about her. It's about the tennis. It's about the tennis players. And she's there in a private capacity. And yet, she, or somebody on her behalf, has seen fit to record her attendance as a spectator at Wimbledon in 2018 as if it were a film or television credit. This is hilarious. Because, for instance, were you in the crowd at perhaps the Manchester Derby and Sky Sports homed in on you as you were cheering a goal for the mighty Manchester City? Congratulations! You should now create an IMDb profile, and you can include Manchester United versus Manchester City, 2019, self, spectator, open brackets, uncredited, close brackets, because you're doing exactly the same thing as this one's wife is. This is interesting because it also demonstrates as well how she's done this before in respect of a report on Granada Reports, which is the news for the northwest of England, and BBC Breakfast, again, another news programme. That appearances where she's not actually the subject of the programme, that she's not actually in a film, but she's included them as her credits. This is demonstrative of the delusion of this one's wife and sums up, in a way, rather neatly the mindset of the narcissist whereby everything revolves around her. I know that for many of you who are understandably non-narcissist, it's quite difficult for you to get your head around the concept that someone could be so self-absorbed as to believe that they are so important that every little thing that they do or say is momentous and ought to be applauded, admired, acknowledged, recorded. But it is the case with the narcissist. The way that her brain works as a consequence of the creation of her narcissism is to make her believe that she is truly, truly special. And she doesn't see that there's anything wrong with such behaviour. She doesn't see that it is ridiculous to have on an IMDb page your appearance in the crowd as a credit with regard to the filming of Wimbledon. I mean, it's not as if there's a film that's been made called Wimbledon in which she played a guest and had a small cameo appearance. That would make sense for you to list that, playing self in the film Wimbledon. But this isn't the film Wimbledon. It's the tournament, and it's the standard coverage. On this basis, you will have IMDb pages for thousands of people who are spectators and were seen, even if it's just for a few seconds, stating, well, I was there, and Wimbledon was televised. I'm playing myself. I'm a spectator. Get my IMDb page sorted. The administrators of IMDb would be overwhelmed with the minutiae of people flooding them to list their appearances, however fleeting, at major events where they have been filmed and televised in the crowd. Naturally, they don't do so. Why? Because they would regard it as ridiculous, because they're not driven by a need for self-publication in the way that this one's wife is. She is so deluded as to her importance that she takes the tiniest of appearances at Wimbledon and expects that it is there to be credited on an IMDb page. It demonstrates once again what a basic individual that she is, that she has no real talent, and what she does is basically root around for scraps to then present herself as somebody important by including an appearance in the crowd as an uncredited listing on IMDb. Absolutely ridiculous, hilarious, worth the ridicule, and once again driven by her narcissism. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.